So I'm going to apologize. I had a bunch of pretty slides. I did this talk at PostCon a couple months ago, and Spotlight, and I couldn't find the slides. But they were mostly a backup in case of lack of internet access, so we should be all right. So Galloway Township, New Jersey, is a little outside of Atlantic City. Population is about 45,000. There are quite a few resources spread out across the internet with information that's useful to local residents. One of those is the legal notices in the Press of Atlantic City Classifieds. Except the format for accessing them is horrible. So you come to this webpage that's more ad than content, find the little classifieds button, click on it, find legal notices.
Up there.
Search. And then you get results. They only show the number of days that the people paid to have the notice show up. And people generally are posting legal notices for compliance reasons. They don't want you to actually read it. So they're going to only advertise something the number of days required. So if you don't go look at this page every single day, you're going to miss lots of interesting stuff. So I made a page that displays them. So the really awesome thing with this whole Web 2.0 thing is that scraping has gotten incredibly easy. So if we look at the source, all we're doing, their search actually does a GET request. So one line with Mojolicious, and then a quick little CSS selector to select our results. It's incredibly easy. This is the stuff that used to suck back in late 90s, before this .com bubble. I mean, this script could easily be 10 lines. There's lots of vertical spacing. Everything's nice and laid out. If you didn't care about maintainability or anything, you could do it shorter. So that's all it took to scrape public notices. Now half the reason for this was there's interesting stuff in there. I find out, oh, they're going to put a gas station in at this Wawa on the corner. It's going to be so great. Everybody else at work, you know, they have no clue, and then all of a sudden one day construction starts. What's going on over there? Oh, they're putting in a gas station. Well, how do you know that? Well, because I saw the public notice. Why don't you know that? Right? Well, the other half the reason is I am actually on the zoning board in Galloway Township. And we have a zoning board secretary, and she sends out these giant packets of paperwork the Friday before the Thursday zoning board. I have 2 kids, I have a full-time job, I'm weird and go to the town council meetings and school board meetings. I need as much lead time as possible if I'm going to have, you know, even a 20% chance of driving by one of these sites and looking at it in person before I go vote on it in the zoning board meeting. The public notice for a zoning board meeting actually goes out as much as a month in advance. And there's enough detail in there that I can drive by the site and have a general idea of what they're coming to the zoning board for, even though I don't have their application. Things like they want to put a sunroom off the back right corner of the house. That sort of thing. I can go look and say, yeah, there's plenty of room behind their house. Sure, it wouldn't quite meet the side yard setback, but the house doesn't need it either, so who cares? So that was the first piece of something I made. Next up was the local electric company. They have a great storm center page. There we go. That shows current power outages. Sucks to be in Bridgeton right now. This is all well and good. When your power's out, you can see how big an outage is, and that's how much do they care about fixing this, you know? Really sucks when your power's out and you look here and there's only 3 people without power. You might be waiting a while. But I'm a nerd, I wanted more. I wanted to know, how quickly did those 5 people lose power? Was it all in one go, or did they trickle out? How quickly did they restore power? That's the sort of thing that our RRD graph is good at, right? So, pretty RRD graphs. And again, they have a nice, pretty Web 2.0 app, so all we gotta do is turn on those developer tool things, and it tells us where the JSON data is. So now we just grab the JSON data and loop over it. There's every county, the count of people without power. I actually just recently added in this whole large magnitude change, so it texts me if more than 500 people lose or get power in Atlanta County at once. I'm a nerd, right? there's a repetitive notion here. So then the third item is I have a scanner. This one I talked a little bit about in a lightning talk at YAPC this last year, that the ambulance station and the police station are right across the street. And I'm nosy, I wanted to know where the ambulances were going every 10 minutes, so I put my scanner online because I'm, again, lazy and got tired of doing it back and forth to work every day. And I have pretty crappy interface for accessing the archive of data. And this one in particular, this and the public notices, people around town that I knew that were also nerding into these sort of things kept asking questions about it. The real trouble was the people who were interested in it, but not quite nerdy enough to understand. So figure trying to explain how to connect to your personal IceCast server to listen to your scanner to your grandmother. Those sorts of things. If you're really interested in being able to listen to this stuff, that has no technical background on how to do that. Oh, and then there are Windows, and you haven't used that in like 15 years, so you have no clue how stuff works. So finally I realized that I have built all these little things that individually aren't anything great on their own, but they're all Galileo-centric. So what if we just make a pretty web page for them and put them all in one place? And put the nice user-friendly instructions, right? So there's a nice pretty web player for listening live. Just tell grandma, go to this website and click play. Now she's listening. There's log. It's almost like somebody in your front end stuff wrote this, but if you knew how long it actually took me to implement this, you would laugh. I cried, but you would laugh. Like, clicking on the box, make the player play, like that right there is like a week worth of things for me. And cursing the web console thingy because it says there's errors that mean nothing to me.
How does it get those titles?
So the scanner I use has a feature where it will output the channel it's on via USB. Windows only, unfortunately. But this is also a trunking system, so it's digital. So we also get the radio UID of the person talking. So those get logged. The actual number to name is something that I've painstakingly mapped over time. The live interface, right? So everybody, I'm sure you desire to see. This is my IRC TMUX window with live data at the bottom for what's going on, which is nice because it's like usually 3 or 4 seconds ahead of what I'm hearing when I'm listening to the stream at work. So it's kind of like a preview of what I'm about to hear. Or sometimes like I'll leave the headphones off when I come back to my desk from a meeting or whatever. And then all of a sudden I see fire dispatch go by and I go, oh shit, something good's coming. Put the headphones on, you don't miss it. So. So this right here, this module is, I'm no math guy, like.
So your UID.text file?
Yeah.
Is that where you're doing the mapping?
Yeah, that's the.
Do you just basically like use this to match?
Yeah, he's asking about, so this is my actual data file for mapping radio user IDs. And the way that this is the one script I never run because it's always running. Let me look. So there are 2 places where I do a similar thing. One is with radio user IDs, the other is with dispatch tones. And both of them are stored in a plain text file. And we just split on the white space and store what we're looking up as hash keys, and the value is what we're translating to. In both these cases, we're only talking about maybe 80 keys, so plain hash works great. I have another key in there, the timestamp of the file. I only last loaded it. So when I go to translate a UID, We call the reload UIDs function if we don't have that one in our data. And the first thing that does is check to see if the M time of the file is newer than the last time we added. So anytime I want to add a new entry, all I got to do is add it to the file, push it to the server. And the next time that or another unknown UID is seen, the file magically gets reloaded. This one also sets the color in that console output based on some very simple regexes. Yeah, the dispatch tones. This one, if you compared my 9-year-old's knowledge of math with mine, and then you compared mine to MJD, so I'd be the 9-year-old. Actually, that's probably giving me too much credit, but I really wanted to decode these dispatch tones. Sample.
Alright, so now 36. 86 is back in quarters up here.
Oh, that's good. That's not good. This is what happens to her now. Hey, oh no, it's okay if I'm on call this weekend. Nothing's gonna come up. Stan, make some magic happen. So, those tones, particularly in areas where the fire department is volunteer, the firefighters have little Minotaur pagers that listen to the dispatch frequency, and they're listening for these two-tone sequences, and that sets them off. In Galloway, the fire department works that way, but EMS also uses them, even they're paid and they're there 24/7. Medcom, the private company that handles advanced life support calls countywide, also uses these dispatch tones. And I knew that FFTs exist. And I knew that an FFT could tell me what frequency was being heard. I learned from an awesome Perl developer after the fact that FFTs were probably the absolute wrong thing to use for this, but it worked. So this guy made a module called Audio Analyzer. And it uses math FFT behind the scenes to do the actual fast Fourier transform. So, I know you can't read it. I just wanted to show that this is incredibly simple. And
Is that what you meant to show?
yeah,
It's not succeeding.
look how much white there is, and look how much text there is, and that's it. You can ignore that. That's crap. But look, that's like when you need to write a 20-page paper and you like add lots of double spacing and well, you set the spacing to 2.8 because it's not triple spacing. Let's do integer math. That's double spacing, right? So
Now. Are the tones monofrequency, or they actually blend multiple frequencies into one tone?
they are monofrequency. It's one and then the other, so it's two tones, one after the other, an A tone and a B tone. This block of data here, back in the day, before Web 2.0, and things like cheap, inexpensive, programmable oscillators, those Minotaur pagers actually used reeds to set the tones, and there was only certain values that were available. So that's effectively a list of all possible legal tone values. But nowadays, it's all digital. You can use any arbitrary tone. A lot of places still use the old classic fixed tones just out of, I don't know, whatever. So my code will actually try to find the closest valid tone and report back the error as well as what it detected and its decision on the closest valid tone. Though FFTs are not necessarily the greatest solution for getting the frequency of these dispatch tones, they are amazingly resilient. There will be the crappiest audio quality, more static than sound, but there's just enough of that tone that the FFT grabs that frequency, and I'll be listening to it, and I won't be able to make it out, but somehow the magical math worked, and here's the frequency, and this is the station that was dispatched. So there's my pretty archive. Power outages, they still need some work. It's just an RD graph. If you look at the URL, it's not even like the right URL. It's, even though this is Galloway now, it links back to that old crap that I had in my home directory. But it makes sense to non-geeks at least a little bit. Public notices. There's an RSS feed. This is the real reason I made it for myself, was I wanted an RSS feed. I forgot to show this. So everybody has a local government channel. The only time you ever put the cable on it was when the power went out and the cable box forgot what channel you were on last. And so it goes to channel 2 or whatever the first time it turns on. I somehow accidentally stumbled on this on their website one day. Oh, you can see those images online. I could scrape those. So I scraped. I just want to comment though, this, I don't know, they almost did it right. They were on the right track. I've got to get out of full screen mode so you can properly appreciate how this site works. All right. So we have CID is kind of like their customer ID. This one is the same for all township messages. Then there's a message ID, and then I think that's a message section ID, and then the message ID, and then page number. Okay, so this particular message here has 3 pages, and now the URL changed, right? This is a different message, and we're on page number 1. And here's a drop down of all the different messages, right? So when we look at this force, so obviously we got some JavaScript in there. This is the drop down boxes with all those values. Well, the way that their paging works is it looks at the selected value in the drop down. Now wait, this isn't even half the crazy. Okay? And it sees what the next MID, CID, all that crap. And it builds the URL for the next one. And then it navigates to that page. And that page, I forget which technology, yeah, ASP.NET. So then there's an active server page that outputs the code with the next option box selected. And then there's a panel here for the number of pages with the page that you're on selected, right? So when it's time to go to the next page, it comes up with the URL with the next page number, and then it navigates your browser to the new URL.
I've been wanting to write like a long essay about this error for years, that beginning programmers confuse the model view and they conflate them. And this is like the best example of that I've ever seen.
Yeah, so the only information on how many pages there are is when you pull back one of these, right, and then you look and see how many thingies there are there. And they're on the right track. They count the number of elements within that page div or span or whatever the hell it was. They're 80% there. If they just fix that 20%. But it's okay, we can scrape it here. Gotcha. So we just get the first page. We get the message select drop down. Now we have our titles. Oh, there was another really bizarre thing that this caused. So they have these section titles. They're the ones without a dash at the beginning. Well, when it tries to navigate to the next thing, what's it going to do when the page title is the next thing? Well, what it does is the value for the page title is the message ID for the first message in that page. It's just weird. That I thought that I had too much catnip from Oregon that night. I saw that. So we skip the crap that has the no dash on the front, but I love Mojo User Agent for this sort of web scraping stuff because it does the CSS selectory goodness. It's got collection methods. You can, right here we are selecting all of the children of that message select. And then we're going to run a map on them to get the value and the text for those messages. And some of this code is not great, but it works, right? So that's what matters. So then for each message, we've got to grab the first page to see how many pages there are. And we do the same thing they did. We use the exact same. They put that ID on that div so that they could use an ID selector, so we'll use that same one to extract the number of pages. And then we just download the thumbnails. This one was probably the longest gap between me writing a new scraper and me putting it on GallowayNow.com because I could not figure out how the hell to display the information. I knew whichever way I picked, it was gonna be better than theirs. And I'm still not quite happy with it. In some ways, I still like it's not there. Okay, so the initial way, Dave smells correct, but it just displayed the multiple images next to each other, and output a BR when there was a new message. So, I don't know, it was nice to scan through them. This way works if you notice the little dots and the little tiny arrows, but I think it's better than the way it was, so. But that's all this is. All of these are little things that I made for myself that I got tired of trying to explain how to access them to people who weren't necessarily technically advanced. And then I realized, hey, wait, these could all go under one pretty UI thing. And so 10% of effort here has been writing the scrapers and stuff like that, and that the 90% was pretending I knew how to do front-end design and JavaScript and that sort of thing. We have a guy at work who's savant when it comes to that sort of thing, and after spending 3 weeks hitting my head at the wall trying to get something to work, I'll ask him for help. He'll say, well, you could do this if you only cared about modern browsers. And I'd say, great, thanks. You know, because this doesn't make money, there's no ads. It doesn't make money. It gets 20 visitors a week that aren't me. But I didn't make it for, I've not made it for myself. So even the improvements to this archive thingy, each of the improvements, I wouldn't have put that week of effort into if it wasn't going to fit me. I mean, there's a thingy in there where it texts me if there's a lot of fire activity. That shit might have gotten real, and I don't want to miss the real shit. So when I get texted, I'm pulling this page up on my phone, and hey, there's a little jump to the log there. That was because I got tired of scrolling on my phone. And I had to jump to top because when it's really narrow, check that out, that's cool. That's, what do they call that? They call that responsive design, right? Or some crap like that, right? See? Where'd it go? See? But now, when I click on it, I gotta scroll all the way up. And that's not too bad on my computer where you can hit home and in. But on the cell phone where there's no home and in, that's in the ass. Especially when it's 11:30 at night. So it's really long. Anyway, I've kind of rambled around, and I think I covered most of the stuff I wanted to. Are there any questions about any of this crazy shit?
We pretty much do the same things in our neighborhood, but not as embedded as you are. But how would you go about keeping track of who picks up any politicians or letter, like having to do it for a time and
Yeah, so keeping track of politicians and...
I don't know who's elected all the positions in my county.
Right, at the county level, or
Yeah.
even more specific, the town?
Yes.
Yeah, both. So if your town doesn't have a website, that would be the greatest to find your elected town officials. The county almost certainly will have a website where you can get the county level officials.
Yes.
The town clerk, call her. She's the person who actually runs the town. I've come to, so,
We'll call town.
yeah, the town clerk knows everything. So I've been going to, I went to, after we bought a house in Galloway, we specifically bought a house in Galloway because we wanted to be there for the school district and some other reasons. And we had an issue at the beginning with the school, and so I went to the school board meeting, and I was the only parent there, and they were surprised there was a parent there, and so I figured maybe a parent should be there, just so no crazy shenanigans go on, right? So then I started going, and then I was like, well, maybe I should go check out this town council thing too, because that's kind of important also. So I went there, and at least there were some other residents there, but not as many as would have been nice. But now I know how the town actually works, that the town clerk is actually the one in charge and runs everything. At least that's what you have to tell her, so that she will give you the stuff that you ask for when you ask for it. And she is in charge of the meeting stuff. And the school board meetings, they like that I come now. They make jokes when I come. The superintendent will give a presentation and she will say, so this is an update from the presentation we did 3 months ago when this policy was first discussed. As the board and parent who comes regularly will know, blah, 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 and then she'll go. But every time she does that, every time, at least once a meeting, as the board and parent who comes regularly will know. And she looks over at me and kind of nods, and then goes back and continues on. So every now and then there's some other parents, but it's only because they're there with their kids because their kid is getting recognized and getting an award, and so. Even Hunter back there has been going to most of the meetings with me, and it's kind of funny though. He ended up getting involved. He learned about petitions in school, came home excited that he had learned about a petition and he was going to make one. And I felt like a horrible father because here I am driving him to these board council meetings, school board meetings. I didn't explain petitions to him. The one thing in retrospect, I knew he would have loved learning about them. That could have made things a little more interesting anyway. So he's been in the paper quite a few times. And he got asked to come speak at a fundraiser for a county candidate and about his petition, and her campaign manager said, here, come take a picture with the candidate and I'll email it to your dad and he can email it to the paper and they might print it in the paper. And he's like, oh, it's okay, I've heard it. So that's why he's here. I figure if he goes to the boring crap, he should get to go to the fun stuff too. And any other questions? Thank you.